So, good afternoon or good evening, depending where you're tuning in. If you're in Rome, it's already dark and after the sunset. If you are on the east coast of North America, we have a beautiful sunny day here. So, welcome to all of you. We're checking in with our delegates how the chapter is going. Since we talked last time, lots has happened, and some very exciting and interesting news came from Rome or from Nami. And maybe Richard and Fidel, like, tell us a little bit, like, how is the spirit at the moment at the chapter? You must be tired by now. I mean, that was our third, fourth week now. So,
Go ahead, Fidel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarek. From last week, we really engaged ourselves in a very, serious business, trying to
no
elect,
kidding.
to elect a general administration, the superior general, and the vicar and the two assistants, and then we finished. It was yesterday with the general councillors. So it was intense with a lot of conversations, consultations, what they call murmuratio. So, when you have those kind of conversations, it's not always easy.
Mm,
People have to come to consensus, people come to agree or to accept, and then vote. And sometimes the outcome of the voting maybe will not please some people, but generally everything went well. And then at the end, everyone seems to be happy, with
mm,
the process. And then on Monday we also had a very short break, going to meet with Pope Francis. It was also a very exciting moment. Just being there with him, listening to what he was saying, and then praying, and then also especially shaking his hand was also a good
mm.
moment for each of us and all of us. And then this week, after elections, so we are to now to try to narrow down all those ideas, themes, to some questions or comments is what we are doing now. But today, we had a busy day trying to go through some changes on constitutions and rules. Some rules needed some amendments or changes. So uh, but it was also really tiresome because a
Yeah.
small rule, a small word or concept here can really drain you to hours. So, but all is going well. But with the amendments of the constitutional rules, really it's taking time because people have to debate, to discuss. This is where we are now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Richard. How would you describe the spirit?
I well, I think we've kind of the high point was over the weekend. See,
Mm,
like after the election of Chicho on Thursday, and then we had to wait, and so there was the excitement of his arrival on Friday late afternoon, and then the installation, and then the canonical elections of the vicar and the two assistants, and and then the visit. And then yesterday, the canonical elections for the councillors, um, and it was almost like, okay, now we can relax, but now the work is starting in a
oh
sense,
yeah.
like today, during our siesta time, I'm part of the finance committee, so we met all during siesta right after lunch until we started again in the
No
afternoon.
siesta for you.
No siesta because we had to keep working on our presentation to the chapter
Yeah.
and any recommendations we have. But there were some really powerful moments, like on Friday evening after supper, we gathered in the chapel for the installation of the new Superior General. A very simple ceremony,
Mm,
uh, a little bit of singing, um, and the profession of faith. But there were two moments that really struck me. One was when Louis took off the founder's cross and handed it to Chicho. He's handing on the reins, handing on the ministry of leadership.
Yeah.
And Chicho accepted the cross and kissed it and put it on. And then he went and washed the feet of three of the people who were there. One of the scholastics and a couple of the capitulars,
Mm-hmm.
a brother and a priest. And that, again, that whole call to the kind of leadership that Jesus portrays for us, that servant leadership. And so that was a very moving and touching time. The audience with the Pope was amazing too. I was telling Eric a little earlier. It was very biblical in the sense, the parable of the people at the wedding feast and getting called up. Um, I got into the hall a little bit later than the others did. Um, I'm a bit slow these days, and so I was looking for a place to sit, and I'd started from the back, and we'd been told to leave the front row for the general administration. So I spotted an empty chair about 4 rows back from the front, and I was just about to start moving in over around people to get into that empty spot when Mario, one of the moderators, said, "There are empty spaces up here, so please come up to the front, some people, so that we don't have empty space in the front." So I ended up right in the front row, right at the door.
Pretty good.
I was first to greet the Pope as he walked right by me as he came in, and then was there again as he left. Um, and so it was a marvelous experience to be there, kind of right in the front, so I could see everything clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then after his address to us, then we had an opportunity, as Fidel said, to go up and shake his hand. But there were a couple of things that the Pope said in his. I mean, he has a great sense of humor too, because Chicho, the Superior General, kind of did an introduction, and so he said, "I thank the Superior General. Poor thing, taken from the desert and brought here to Rome."
That's what he said exactly. It was interesting to read the translations because the original thing came Italian, but so some people were translating initially as a poor fellow, and eventually the official translation
Yeah,
came poor
yeah, yeah.
thing.
This
But
is this is the official translation from the
great sense of humor.
yeah, the Holy See press office. But then he really highlighted. I mean, obviously he had done the homework, and somebody had, whether he wrote the thing himself or not. But he said you've chosen the theme, a very demanding theme, and very similar to what was chosen for the church's next jubilee.
Hmm.
Which is uh, interesting for me. And he says it's a theme, Pilgrims of Hope and Communion. It's a theme that sums up your identity on the streets of the world, to which, as disciples of Jesus and followers of your founder, Saint Eugene de Mazenod, you are called to bring the gospel of hope, joy, and peace.
Yeah.
And uh, and he continued on in that vein and talked about. I mean, really challenged us to live to to recapture the charism and to live it as fully as possible. But he focused on the need in our world for hope and for communion, and
Hmm.
and you know some of the ways that we could bring those gifts to the world. So for me, the audience was a great experience. I didn't understand what he was saying when he was speaking, but then reading the address later, wow,
No,
really,
certainly it's worth reading. Like initially, as I said, when we were watching it from our end here, watching
yeah,
the news, that was the Vatican news had just a few quotes from it, and
right,
the official language was published only in Italian.
hmm,
But eventually, when it came in English, like it's really powerful. The one thing that really struck me for us for the Oblates, when he said that to learn to recognize hope, the theme of hope
yeah,
among the poor to whom you are sent, who often manage to find it in the midst of the most difficult situations. Let yourself be evangelized by the poor you evangelize, which is really significant for us as the Oblates. So I would encourage all of you who are watching us that we have the link to the Pope's address on our Facebook, on our Twitter. You will certainly find it, and it's really worth reading.
I
I want to,
also, in
yeah,
the email that was sent out today, that I sent out the update, I included the link for the English translation as well.
and excellent, and it's really worth like for the meditation and prayer, like really finding our identity. I want to thank to all of you who are joining us and watching this live conversation. And thank you for your comments already. Diane praying and cheering for all of you. It's great to see you, Diane Lepage, here with us, and Eleanor as well. Thank you for taking this time with all of us, as busy as you are, as Richard mentioned, not siesta even for you. So,
Yep.
what a journey you are on and sharing with all of us. A tremendous gift to all of us. Love and prayers continue. Yes, please be assured about our support here and prayers. And those of you who are watching, please don't hesitate. You can post your questions or if you have any. But both of you, you mentioned that like the election of the superior general was a significant moment. Can you explain to us, those of us who have no idea how that happened, like what is the process of electing superior general? It's just somebody
Okay.
says, "Oh, I want to be superior general," or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what is the process of?
There was none of that. So we started off. It's something like the process for our, when we select or when we consult for leadership in the province. So we did a straw ballot. We started
Mhm.
off by just in the plenary talking about the qualities that we felt uh, we wanted our spirit general to have
Okay.
and the gifts that he would bring to leadership. And so I wrote them down. I had three quarters of a page. And I thought, I don't know if Jesus himself would be able to live up to all this stuff. But anyway, it was pretty amazing. And then we had some time to think. And then we did a straw ballot and they came back with names. And then we did an afternoon of what we call memoratio. So for a period of 10 or 15 minutes, you would, engage with one other person and just kind of share what you know about the people whose names are on the list. Um, they had had time the night before to consider whether they would leave their name on, and there was a whole process there as well. And then we had a retreat, and so we had an afternoon and an evening of quiet and prayer. And then the next morning we started. And so we started with the roll call, and we were given the list of names who, the not in any order of preference, but just alphabetically, those who had let their names stand. And then we started, fill out a ballot, one name on the ballot.
So you
And
have only like the ballot is just a blank page, and you fill in the name. You're not marking like on the elections that
no,
you have
no,
like in.
no, no, there's a half sheet of paper with a space in the middle, and you print the name in there
Okay.
and drop it in the ballot box, and then the ballots are counted, and then one of the tellers reads the name on each ballot, and there are two tellers keeping track of the votes, and then the results are announced. And um, for the depending on how many ballots it takes, the first three um, have to have a 66% majority. And if the general isn't elected at that time, then it's a simple majority, so half plus one. And then I think if we had to go to a fifth ballot, it would have been just whoever had the most votes.
Mhm.
But we elected on the fourth. But then, I have to get hold of Chicho because he wasn't in the hall. He was in West Lara.
That's right. So you mentioned obviously, as you mentioned, like people are sharing their suggestions, the names of the oblates, and it's not limited to those who are present in the chapter,
That's right.
obviously.
Yeah.
But was Chicho involved in those conversations, or he was
No.
surprised when he was elected?
No. Well, he was probably surprised when he was elected, but his name had come up in the straw ballot, And so he had been contacted to ask
Hmm.
if he would leave first of all, to say his name had come up quite strongly, and then would he leave his name on? And so he agreed to leave his name stand. And then once he was elected, then see, the Superior General presides over the elections. That's why we had to
Hmm.
wait for the rest of the elections. We had to wait for the Superior General to come. Because as soon as he's elected, he becomes Superior General. So Louis no longer had the authority. Um, so Louis called him on the phone and put him on speaker and said that,
Hmm.
the chapter had elected him Superior General. Did he accept? And he said yes. And so we all stood up and cheered and sang Salve Regina. It was just it was a real moment of elation and of joy.
Yeah,
So,
and I think we saw a little video of that, the communication posted of it, but I was curious about it, like how Chicho was involved in the conversations. If he just woke up in the morning and all of a sudden phone rings, you're the Superior General,
pretty much
start
that.
talking. That would be a little
Pretty
surprise.
much.
But it's really surprisingly, it didn't take him long to get to Rome. Like I thought,
Yeah,
gosh,
he
like coming,
managed to get there in just a little over 24
yeah.
hours. Uh, Apparently, when he got to the airport, he just missed the flight by a very short time, like minutes, basically. So then he had to wait till the next day for a flight.
Well,
So,
well, it was meant to be, I guess, and
yeah,
he's there.
yeah, so he
Th-
got here.
So that was the same process follows for the general assistants and
Yeah, so
the
there were nominations.
counselors.
So again, yeah, um, and and then they were asked if they would leave the name, and then we did the roll call on the ballots again, um, and then so that was on Saturday for the vicar general and the assistants general, and then yesterday we did the regional councillors. Now the regional councillors are a little bit different in that the regions proposed the names for the councillors.
Hmm.
We were asked to give two or three names in order of preference. And then, so those were listed, and the president of the region, or someone who knew the people well, would give a little bio of each one, and then we started the voting.
So you
And
said this time the first one you mentioned about Superior General, the names weren't listed in preference; it was just alphabetically. But
that's
for
right.
the counselors, there is a preference, right?
Yeah, yeah. The
Okay.
regions were invited to list them in order of preference.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, so Jim had agreed to let his name stand, and and he was our first choice, and so he was elected. And but then, it was like 4 in the morning when he was elected for him.
Oh yes.
so so Chicho waited until lunchtime, which is 1 o'clock here, and he phoned him during lunchtime, and he came before we were finished lunch.
That
So
makes
Chicho,
sense. You see, knowing those behind the scenes information, it really helps to understand, because I was checking in the morning and I thought something is not right here. All the councillors are elected but Canada US. Like
yeah,
so what's going on there? But that makes sense now, like you said, like just the
yeah,
time difference. That's what happened.
yeah, because he wasn't here, so they didn't want to
Yeah.
wake him up to ask him. Yeah. But Jim will be coming on Monday sometime. He'll be here for the last
Okay.
week of the chapter. So, yeah.
Well, that's his new job now, so that's what has to
Yeah.
happen.
Well, once the chapter's over, then the old and the new administration will meet together to do some
Just a
transition
person.
work.
Oh yeah.
So they need to be here. Uh, yeah. So then he'll
So
probably
that's
go home, pack up, and come back.
that's a new day. It's
Yeah.
certainly it's an exciting time and this change of everything what is happening. But I want to go back to the audience when you mentioned, like, what was the most powerful or striking moment? Like, I understand that was the audience just for the oblates, right? It
Yes.
wasn't general audience. It was just for the
No.
oblates, for those who were at the chapter and staff as well. But
Yeah.
what did you find personally? Like personally, your experience of the audience. What did you find the most insightful or touching, or like from your personal experience?
I've been talking a lot, Fidel, so it's your turn. I think Fidel's frozen. No, no, sorry.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Now for me, the touching experience was the moment Pope was entering. He was not that strong. Was he's weak, because his
Hmm.
health condition. But really, the fact that he was entering is like the whole hall was like really excited, and then all of a sudden people were right applauding, and then it was really like really a very joyful encounter. If you remember before he started talking.
Hmm.
So the second experience also was touching experience for me was the fact that Father Chicho, when they approached him, went to greet him, and then also the Pope kissed the oblate cross, one of the founder. So he kissed that cross. To
There's a
me also,
beautiful picture on the Vatican website.
yes,
It's really powerful.
it was really significant. And then also the time when we were going really to greet him also was a good moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was one-on-one greeting that you had the chance as well with him.
Yes.
When you like personally approached him, did he speak any English or like just say hello or
I did not get
Well,
much because I was speaking Italian.
okay?
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
So
he
Richard,
just said hello in Italian and, thanked us for coming. And yeah, I mean, some people who spoke Italian said a few more words. For example, when Ken was there, Ken thanked him again for coming to Canada for the apology and, how much we appreciated that. And, wished him many blessings. And Francis, you could see he was just beaming.
mhm,
Uh, yeah. What really struck me, I mean, I'm sure he came as far as the doors in his wheelchair, but he walked in
mhm,
and walked up to his chair and got up there, and then got up from the chair and walked over to the other one to sit for the photo, and then walked out. But you could tell how much effort it took, and even to stand up out of his chair,
mhm,
the gentleman who is his wheelchair pusher came up to him, stood in front of him, took him under the armpits and lifted him, helped him to stand up,
mhm.
because his legs are so bad. Uh, and you could tell as he walked that he was in
It's a
pain,
struggle.
but he made the effort. And I
Mhm,
mean, just the example, uh, that despite the discomfort, except for the legs, I mean, he's in pretty good shape.
yeah.
But except for the legs, and he just doesn't let that stop him or slow him down. And he's planning another trip, and
Oh
for me,
gosh,
yeah, and it's just it amazes me.
it's really great that like he is giving everything to the church and to the mission. What and he has that unique personality too, like the unique presence that he is among. Like when he was here
Yeah,
in Canada, and as well, you had that experience. I see you mentioned that Ken talked to him and thank him for the visit. Ken is trying to connect. I see that he's trying, but something is not working well.
it's not
So
working for him.
he's
Mhm.
coming in and on and off, but cannot
Yeah,
connect
because
simply.
you've stuttered a couple of times and then flashed off and came back on.
Yeah, it's happening. But I want to ask you another question. Like, so that was a really exciting time and experience that you have electing the Superior General, the Council, meeting the Pope, and now the work start. But as every chapter that produces the vision,
Yeah,
or for next 6 years, or the even special document on it, like from your sense, your conversations and among yourselves as the capitulars, like what are the themes emerging from the experience? Like looking at next 6 years, like do you hear anything, or is there anything like emerging? I mean, we will have the detailed document afterwards, but
Yeah.
like from what you're hearing on the ground.
So, some of the things that come up are the ideas of crossing borders.
Hmm.
Certainly, interculturality has been really strong, and that starts with formation. That we form people in an intercultural milieu. Um, Ladato Si and the care for our common home is a strong theme that keeps coming up in various areas.
Hmm.
I talk about different aspects of our life, and certainly, you know, um, yesterday afternoon we were divided into two groups, or no, we could go to one of two of three groups during the afternoon, and they took each of the words from our theme, pilgrims, which then they translated into oblate identity, and communion and hope. And some of the things that came out from those groups were very powerful. The whole notion of communion, the necessity for community and building strong community, building those bonds, not just on the local level,
Hmm.
but within the units and within the regions and within the whole congregation. That was really strong. Uh, and the idea of us walking together, not just us, but walking together with the laity, with the associates especially, but also with the people that we're called to evangelize. So that it's again that whole understanding of ministry as being ministry just to.
Hmm.
You know, we're not ministering to someone; we're ministering with them. Uh, and excuse me. As Francis mentioned, letting the poor evangelize us as we evangelize them.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, those themes I think will be very foremost in the document that comes out.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, because it seems like, as you said, those themes of pilgrims, oblate identity, hope, and communion are really well. They were reflected before the chapter itself as well. It was a time for
Mm.
reflection and what that means for us. But Fidel, what do you hear? Like, well, what do you hear like in emerging from those conversations?
Yeah, there's Father Richard said there was, after different groups and for those sub themes, um, the theme of communion came strongly, and then at all levels,
Hmm.
from the communities, units, and then also to create that is interdependence, that seeing the numbers of the oblates now going down, diminishing. So
Hmm.
communion here will be very, very important so that we may strengthen, each other, so that all units may feel supported in terms of personnel, in terms of the resources, so that we may survive together. So that hope, that will give hope. So for that
Hmm.
hope to work, so we need to really be together, in all aspects of our ministries, missions, formation, and other resources. So this was really coming strongly, and also to, 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 to promote good relationship with the associates, to involve them more, and also to work hard for vocations, especially also for the brothers. So those are for now,
Hmm.
ideas that are coming strongly, and then to restructure also, our maybe from the level of the general administration, to people also talking more about giving more responsibilities to the general administration to ensure that the communion sharing, is well structured so that
Mhm.
it may be effective. Because sometimes people just talk and then, no impact. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Vidal. I think that was really looking forward to the outcome, how it's gonna show up afterwards. And look who is joining us by the end
Ooh.
of our conversation, trying hard. As the gospel says, you have to keep knocking so the door will be opened for you. And as the gospel says, just try, keep connecting, and finally the server will let you in. So can we had an opportunity to chat about the exciting week that you had, the election of the Superior General, the visit with the Pope. Like, share with us from your perspective, from your personal experience, like what was powerful for you? Like, what was the experience of that last week?
I would say thanks Yarek, and sorry everybody. My for some reason my computer wouldn't allow me to connect. The
Hmm.
camera wouldn't start, so I went to my backup, and so good to be on with you. Really quickly, Yarek, what I would say is that one of the highlights of the week for me, of course, was I heard Richard talk about it, was the call to Father Chicho and his his immediate acceptance and his readiness to serve, and as one of as an oblate in Namibia wrote, he said he's moving from the desert to the desk, and which is not quite true because Chicho won't really be a man of the desk. He'll be an oblate general who's out visiting the people, visiting the oblates, and visiting the poor with whom we work. So I'm really excited about Chicho as our general. We've had a great general in Father Louis these last 12 years, and this will be Father Chicho will bring something very different, but it will be rich and very good for the congregation and the people we serve, just as Louis has been. So that was wonderful. The visit to Pope Francis and his invitation to us uh, to 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 look to the roots of our charism and
Mhm.
to to really get in touch with the founder and to see the world today through his eyes. It was a profound invitation, um, and and I must say, just as we move through the chapter, working with working with the oblates and just day by day doing the work that the chapter calls us to has been a real blessing. Getting to know the men from around the world, and spending time in the working sessions with them, spending time socializing together, spending time praying together. It's all been a lot of work, but a tremendous blessing. And so glad that there's four of us here from OMI Lacombe, and we're I'm grateful to be here. I'm always with Richard and Fidel, or sorry, with Richard and Harley, but it's great to be here with Fidel as well. And we're hoping to go out together as a province on Saturday. That's our plan, to go out for supper on
That's
Saturday
nice.
together, which will be nice. Yeah,
That's about
we'll
time.
probably go for Italian food.
Oh, that's surprising, really.
That's right. Yeah.
You should. Well, thank you, really, thank you for your insights and for sharing with us that a little behind the scenes stories. Like it really helps to even understand what's happening there and how it happens, why. And I hope we will be able to connect again before you come home, so just to have an overlook expression of the chapter and how the things are going, how it happened. We're certainly looking forward to welcoming you back in a couple of weeks, I guess, or so. Then will be the time. But meanwhile, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for taking the time in a busy schedule. I will post as well in the comments for those who are watching or will be watching later on the link to Pope's address to the Oblates on Monday, and it's truly worth it to read it, and not only read it but to truly meditate, because he has a few very powerful lines there, and trying to understand as well who we are as the Oblates and about our mission. So thank you to you, and thank you to all of you who join us and who are watching us and who will be watching afterwards as well. It's always wonderful to connect, and we'll be in touch, and we'll be talking pretty soon. So all the blessings on you, on your work. Don't get too bored. Listen carefully what the changes to or with are about, like to every single letter in the constitutions. But we will be praying for you, and we'll be here on this end. So God bless.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Yark. And we do look forward to being with you again next week before we come home.
Perfect.
Thank
And
you.
see you then.
Okay.
Okay.